I will call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. on Monday, April 1st, 2024. We'll begin with some consent agenda items. Minutes of the March 18th, 2024 school board meeting, some professional staffing recommendations, and as well as some co-curricular staffing recommendations, and other personnel items not necessary to vote, so I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
I'll move to do so.
Thank you, Megan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Thank you. That would bring us to public comments, of which we have a few this evening. So I've got a little reading to do. First off, in accordance with School Board Policy 167.3, the McFarland School Board welcomes public comment during regular meetings from individuals who are present at the meeting or who have sent an email to the board president or superintendent. Participants are required to register to speak upon arriving at the meeting. State their name, address, and any group affiliation before speaking. Address only topics within the legitimate jurisdiction of the board. Recognize that the board will not respond to comments during the meeting unless the item is on the published agenda. Limit their comments to under 5 minutes or 250 written words, and please maintain decorum. So, I think we have 4 or 3 to read, and we'll do those first, and then we'll call up our in-person commenters. Megan, would you like to start?
Yes. And for clarification, do we read their names but not their addresses? Or do we read their addresses?
Oh,
Both?
You can, but just the names, you're not required to
Really?
read the addresses. I believe they're required
Since
to
they've given
provide
us the
it.
addresses already?
Yes.
Okay.
The addresses we just use to verify that they're
Yep.
residents.
Okay. Okay, President Craig Howery stated, "It's not the what, but the when," referring to the HGD suggestions. Resounding yes. When you move curriculum from 4th grade to K2, it is not a step, it's a massive leap. The HGD committee wants to move these from 4th grade. Diverse family structures, kindergarten, gender identity, 1st grade, attraction feelings, 2nd grade. They changed using the term sexual orientation and modified it to attraction feelings. We are talking about sexuality to a 7-year-old. Vaginal and anal sex will be covered in 6th grade, but sexual attraction to 7-year-olds. Puberty is taught in 4th grade. This sequence is troubling. The curriculum has not been adapted for this purpose yet. First, you have to pass this new plan. That feels backwards. It would be irresponsible to vote in favor of these significant changes when educators haven't mapped this for the classroom. These are drastic changes, and you want to vote to test them out on a grade my child is entering. The committee discussed ways to introduce subject matter. Reading LGBTQ+ books during story time, but for HGD, throughout 1st grade. I am Jazz about a 5-year-old transgender was one suggestion. I understand recommendations by the HGD committee on how educators can exercise their suggestions exist, but nothing developed by the educators who will shoulder the responsibility of the lesson plans. I understand parents can opt out their child, but that does not come without difficulty and room for error. Thank you for hearing my concerns. Anastasia Kramper.
Susan Bickler, 4242 Senate Street, McFarland. Gender identity and sexual orientation should not be taught in public school. These are personal values, choices, and discussions that belong purely at home. There is constant talk of inclusion, yet you're forcing ideology on the curriculum that goes completely against that. We're told to treat kids the same. We can't celebrate Christmas because it's religious and not fair to those who don't celebrate. Same for Halloween or birthdays, except we're told that it excludes children who can't afford costumes or treats. When I was in school, kids who didn't participate stayed home or were taken to a different room. For years now, we've been told we shouldn't implement things that go against one's beliefs or don't allow all to participate. So what's changed? You want to implement ideology that goes against the beliefs of many, whether religious or not. If we don't want our children exposed to something we believe could be harmful to them or simply inappropriate, then we're forced to opt out. What happens to the kids who opt out? Does the teacher say, hey, kids, we're going to have story time, but you need to go somewhere else? Or do we need to keep our kids home that day to ensure they're not exposed to content that is not age appropriate? Either way, we're, excuse me, we're treating kids differently. This is unfair and sets kids up to be humiliated, teased, and or bullied, which is exactly what you always claim to be against. All right. Luke Fessler, 6409 Fox Run, McFarland. As a member of this community and a parent of 2 kids in the district, one of whom is transgender, I'd like to thank the board and the HGD Advisory Committee for their time and work on the updated guidelines. I've read through the district's 4K to 12 Human Growth and Development Curriculum Guide and support the board moving things like gender identity and attraction feelings sooner in students' education. To me, having kindergartners learn age-appropriate concepts like some people call themselves boys, some girls, some both, or neither, and that's okay, is exactly the kind of knowledge that fosters an open and accepting world for our children as they grow into responsible and understanding adults. Reading through the curriculum guide, I am also appreciative of how these concepts are introduced at an early age, then built up and expanded upon as children go through each successive grade. I encourage others interested in what is being taught to read through the current guidelines, to view examples of what is meant by age-appropriate content and language, as well as the guidelines teachers use when answering students' questions. Teaching these concepts early in our children's education lays a foundation for understanding and acceptance that helps to reduce stigmas, prevent bullying, promote emotional well-being, and create safe spaces for our children to learn and be themselves. That is the kind of educational environment I want my children in, and that is why I encourage you to vote to approve the proposed changes to the HGD curriculum. Thank you, Luke Fessler. Now we have some in person. Let's start with Bruce.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Curtis, 6104 Saunders Court. I apologize for my voice tonight. I am also recovering from a recent cold and tested negative, so I'm good, at least for now. Is it my understanding that questions that I pose tonight will not be answered? Or will you answer them to the best of your ability?
If it's a question that is part of the agenda, so for example, the Human Growth and Development Curriculum, they will be talking about that.
Okay.
That tonight, so it may be answered during the discussion part of that.
My question has to do with the upcoming referendum, so that cannot be answered then?
Correct.
Okay. That changes things a little bit for me, and I understand board policy, but I'll do my best. I have several questions, and Dr. Tonitzer has already answered a couple of them previously with emails, and I appreciate that. I was looking, first of all, at the very first year, 24-25, where the board will get, or the district will get $3.7 million. And it's my understanding that we have in our district about 320 staff members thereabout. Thank you. So that comes down to about $11,500 per staff member. So if you took that 3.7 million and you divided it amongst all of the staff, they would all get $11,000. That would be really nice. As a retired teacher, I would love to see staff get some compensation. Obviously, that's not going to happen, and I have questions about how much is going to go to staff. And I haven't been able to find the answers as to how much is going to go to staff, how much is going to go to administration, what % is going to go to operating cost. And so that's something that has puzzled me, and I guess I should have reached out to Dr. Tonitzer beforehand, before I came tonight, but I apologize then. I also have a question about, and of course this is hypothetical, but let's say that, for example, that first year, you decide to split that 11,000, or that 3.7 million, let's say you split it 1/3 for staff, 1/3 for administration, 1/3 for operating cost. And then the following year, if things go sideways, something changes, will the board come back and say, wait a minute, we're going to go back to the previous year and say, okay, now we're going to change that. We need to move, instead of 1/3 to staff, we're going to move some of that over to operating costs because this has happened. There's been a change. Is that something that the board has considered? I don't know. I haven't found any information on that. So those are two questions that I have in regards to the upcoming referendum. There's some issues here, at least in my mind, about what's really going to happen with the funds. It's a lot of money. I think the board has laid that out pretty clearly as to how much every household is going to be taxed. I think they've been very clear with that. My question is, what's going to happen with these scenarios? Thank you for your time.
Eric?
Good evening, everybody. Eric Johnson, 6105 Woods Crossing. And I do have a question that is on tonight's agenda first before I get to the referendum. Has the board or anybody asked K-2 parents in a survey what they think about what you guys are going to do for this guide that you're talking
Oh,
about
for
adopting?
the HGD?
Yeah, yeah.
There hasn't been a separate survey for K-2 parents. There were parents that were on the advisory committee.
So you have your committee, but you have not asked all parents K through 2 what they think about this.
Correct.
Is there a reason why you haven't done that?
Well, it's a representative committee, and so they were meant to represent the interests of those areas. And the committee could have decided to administer a survey, but they chose not to.
And how many were on the committee?
27 people.
27, okay. I just think from, different conversations, I think the board should ask what people want to do before they pass something. I mean, 27 people, maybe it's a representation, maybe it's not. I know a lot of people are busy and maybe they couldn't be part of it and would like to be part of it. But I think something of this magnitude, you should ask parents what their thoughts are. And then my main purpose was with the referendum as well, because I was trying to clarify as well where all the money was going to go. And I did the math to see what it was going to be for a $500,000 house. And I come up with $930 for the first year, $1,410 for the second year, $1,915 for the third year, and $2,465 for the fourth, and then $2,850 for the last year, which over the 5 years seems to be about a 30% increase in taxes. And I wanted to make sure I was doing my math correctly, but you can't answer that.
There is a breakdown on the website.
Yeah, and I saw
So-
that.
So that sounds right in my head from what's on the website.
And like Bruce, a lot of the information I read about is teacher salaries, teacher benefits. But when I read the statement, it says operational referendum. and then it says utilities and transportation. And to me, that leaves me thinking that there's gonna be funds going to utilities and transportation. Is that correct? Oh, you can't say that. I see some nods. But I just want to know as well, and I don't know how we get to this, and I apologize, I haven't been to any other meetings either. Time just hasn't allowed it, and like now is like the end of the road, so I was trying to get some of my answers. We do need to do something about teacher wages and benefits, but I am just unclear, like Bruce said, of what is going where. Like what percentage is gonna go to teachers? Because when you look at the math, and the money that's there, because being in education for 26 years, is that if healthcare goes up, wages do not. And so, I guess, and I'm not sure how to get, to get these answers, to find out where it's going. And the other one that I had is, when this money comes in, I understand that, you know, it goes into line items where you can't use some funds, like maintenance funds can't be transferred over to maintenance or to teacher funds. Is the money gonna stay where it's supposed to and not move into other areas? So I apologize, I didn't come to the other meetings because I was really interested to find out about that. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Eric. Megan?
Hello.
Am I supposed to give my address, or can I just give a name?
You registered using it, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. So hi, everybody. My name is Megan Mapes. I am thankful to be able to say something quickly tonight. I just wanted to thank all of you for serving on our school board. I mean that wholeheartedly. I'm in education myself, and I know serving on the school board is, you put in a lot of work, and it's appreciated. So thank you for caring about our community and doing that. I've been teaching early elementary students for about 15 years. And after reading through some of the proposed changes for the Human Growth and Development Committee, I do have some concerns. And most of them are based around what I feel like is maybe missing some communication and not being as clear and as transparent as we could be. So I just have some questions. It's hard to decipher based on the changes that were made, what based on the select items that were written, what this is going to look like next year. What this is going to look like for K-1-2 students is what I'm primarily concerned with. I think just talking with people in the community, I think there are some people that are uncomfortable with these changes but are afraid to speak up because we don't want to appear like we're against inclusivity in any way. However, it's possible to be wholeheartedly for inclusivity, but against these changes. I absolutely want my children to love and accept all students, all people. However, when we talk about, in my personal opinion, what's developmentally appropriate, I don't have a problem about what is being taught, but when it's being taught. And again, it's hard to kind of figure out what this is going to look like next year based on what I've seen. And doing some research around Dane County, different districts, I spent a significant amount of time this weekend looking through when some of these topics are being taught in other districts around Dane County. And the majority of them teach gender identity and feelings of attraction in 3rd grade or later. There are a couple in 2nd grade. So my big question is why, and this isn't an angry question, I just genuinely want to know, why are we proposing to teach some of this in 1st grade? And I'm just really curious about that. I personally feel like these topics are of a mature content, and they are. And I think most of you would recognize that as well. They are of a mature content. They need to be taught when students are able to process them in a healthy manner. And I think I appreciate that you gave us all time to speak and you extended this decision so community members could weigh in. But I know reading through your notes, it did mention that age-appropriate language would be used, which is great. However, my concern is it going to be watered down so much that students aren't really understanding what we're trying to teach? I would rather see some of these topics taught when students can really weigh in on the conversation, have some background knowledge, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, really be able to contribute to the conversation. Just knowing what being in the classroom, teaching 1st and 2nd graders, I just feel like it makes sense to wait. Students are more mature. They're able to understand in a better way. Being a teacher myself, sometimes I know how these committees work. It's the people that are really passionate that want to jump on and be a part of this decision-making. However, I really feel like there's a lot of families that are not even aware of these changes. And it just, in the future, would be awesome to be able to see maybe some sample lessons, just so we know with the different words that you use, what does this look like? Give us an idea of what it would look like in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. I think that would be really helpful and easier to get behind, just so we're aware. I like to be informed. Another big question I have is what happens when students opt out of these programs? Has there been a plan? Are they just going to be out in the hallway? Is there an alternative lesson? Just curious and wondering. I'm just left here with a lot of questions about what this is going to look like next year. I'm not trying to criticize or anything, but I guarantee you that there are a lot of families that feel the same way. And I think just with changes of this kind, it's helpful to be transparent and also, like the gentleman before me said, give other families a chance to weigh in. I think a survey would have been awesome. I appreciate you listening to me and considering what I have to say. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Megan. Okay. So we will move on to the McFarland High School student report in that case.
All right.
There we are.
Let me just get my presentation here. Awesome. All right, if it'll load here. Wonderful. Okie doke. So some highlights for the past couple of weeks, not including spring break. So the week before spring break, our MHS Hope Club hosted Hope Week. So thank you to all the MHS students for being eager participants in our scavenger hunt, our morning drink tables, and for spreading the message to digitize mental health. You can see in the pictures, we had some tables at lunch. We got a lot of interaction from students. It was just really awesome. It was a really fun week. And then I won't play this video all along, but I can share it if anyone's interested. We had some of our MHS Hope Squad students make a follow-up video after the ambassador's presentation on THC use a couple of weeks ago, maybe. But it essentially goes over. We're going to be doing a kind of scroll through this a little bit, see, breaks down some of the teen mental health foundations, first aids, action steps. It goes over those and talks about the overdose aid kits that are in bathrooms. So it's a super awesome presentation, and thanks to the MHS students that helped out with that. It's a super awesome informative video.
That's fine. We're going to be doing a presentation on Johnny's.
Get to the next slide there. Wonderful. And then another super awesome thing, a visual art classic state. So our team here at MHS went to UW-Madison, the state competition. They took home 4 first place medals. You can see them there. We got Gwen Detmer, Hayden Kurtz, and Aspen Terry Glisterloaf. So super big congratulations to them. It was awesome. We also, over our spring break, had a senior, Cameron Hung, who traveled to Maryland to present at the National Institutes of Health. So that was super awesome, and congrats to him. His presentation was titled Growing Pains, What I Learned from Growing Up with Chronic Pain. So just a huge congratulations to them for doing that, because that was pretty big. We also had a US history class presentation. So each year, our history department secures a guest speaker for all freshmen in US History 9 and any students in this Designs by annual seminar course. history of the Holocaust. This year's guest speaker was Marty Thack, who shared about his story of surviving the Holocaust. So just a huge thanks for him for coming in and sharing his story, because that was super awesome. Then coming up, our MHS Med Club on April 10th will be partnering with the American Red Cross to host a blood drive, and I believe in the RSLC, from 8:30 to 1:30. So students, faculty, and community are all welcome to come and donate as soon as they are eligible. They are also helping motivate people to donate by presenting all donors with a $10 e-gift card too. So super awesome. And then tomorrow, the primary elections take place, of course. So our club Connect will be heading over to the polls tomorrow for a little field trip, both at the new municipal center and the old municipal center. And we will be helping guiding people to their poll locations and all that fun stuff. We've also helped prepare the members of the student body that now have the privilege to vote because they are 18. We've made informational videos and sent info via email to juniors, as well as juniors who may be able to register before the next big election, detailing how they can register and also be voting on tomorrow. This is super awesome stuff. And then some student staff updates. So our staff came in this week for Ms. Shipper and Mr. Ray, so congratulations to them, very well deserved. And then it is also National Associate Principal Recognition Week, so we would like to recognize Ms. Harper and Ms. Tamer for all of their hard work and for being wonderful associate principals. They are new this year and they have been absolutely amazing. So just a huge gratitude. And then we have a presentation presented by Louis Pegg, who is here today on behalf of our Amethyst GSA. I will pull that up and hand it off to Louis.
Hi, I'm Louis. One second.
Sorry, we'll here. Here we go. One second. There you go.
There. So hi, I'm Louis. Wait. Sorry, I don't use Google Meet. So I've been a part of GSA since my freshman year, and I'm currently a junior. So yeah, this is McFarland Gender Sexuality Alliance. So I'm going to be going over the goals of GSA, recent events we've done, and the future events of it. So the goals of it. We have 4 main goals. It's equity, inclusion, community, and awareness. GSA really tries to work to create a good community for queer students and trans students in McFarland High School. And so we try to create a safe space for a lot of students. The club itself tries to exist as a space for students to share their experiences during our meeting, and also creating more outreach for students in the general body who aren't a part of the club. And the recent events we've done include a middle school outreach where Ken Young, who also presented in Maryland, he went down to the middle school and tried to encourage students from the middle school to continue in high school. It was a really cool little event that he did, and we were very fortunate that we got to work that out. And then we also had National Coming Out Day in October, where we had a table set up and we hand out a lot of pronoun pins and pamphlets to help spread more awareness. And yeah. And the future events we're planning for the club include Day of Silence and more health class presentations. So you might have heard of Day of Silence before. It's April 12th, 2024. It's a day to spread awareness about the bullying and silencing of LGBTQ plus students. A lot of students will be taking a vow of silence to represent the silencing of LGBTQ plus students. So we're handing out pins, and we have another lunch table set up. And then we have our health class presentations, which we do both semesters. So our second one will be coming up, where 2 to 3 members present a slideshow at the health classes. And it's a very cool opportunity to work with freshmen and to share our club to some of the younger students. And yeah, that's the club.
Awesome. I do believe that is all we have. So, any questions at all?
I have a couple, Joy. First of all, with the Hope Squad, you set up the table, because I was here when you did that. How do you measure the club's effectiveness on the student body here?
So we have kind of a program that we use, a method. So each year we'll nominate some squad members and we'll get new members and we'll train them using a specific program. Often, so when we notice things, we notice maybe words that are being shared, certain phrases that are being shared by a student body. Hope Squad member overhears them. They will refer them to a student services member. And so that student services member will meet with them. And I think really how we measure progress is on like how many like lives we end up saving, how much like help we can get the students, how many resources we can get to them. And I think also we can look at by kind of examine the mindset around mental health. I think since Hope Squad has been implemented, there has been a lot like I would say like kind of improper like use of like certain terms for mental health. There's been a lot more like education about mental health and different aspects and like what you can say about it and what you can't really say about mental health. So I would say in general.
Okay, thanks. Also, I had the opportunity to view that student-made video following Johnny's ambassadors.
Yes.
Very well done. I hope sometime you can show it to the board here. It's just the content that the students developed in that short 3.5 minute video. Very powerful.
Anybody else? Well, as always, job well done. And we'll see you next time. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, District Administrator's Report. Mr. Tarnitzer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Lots of great things to share going around the district, some recognitions. The Kindness Retreat, which you may have heard about, fifth graders participated in just before break. And that mirrors, it's the same company that we use for the youth, it's Youth Frontiers, the same company we use for 7th grade Courage Retreat. Just a really cool event, and you know, there's a few favorite parts I have, but one of the things I love about it is the engagement of the high school students that go down there and serve as group leaders. So thank you so much. The 5th grade team really did the bulk of organizing that. And congratulations, we were just talking about the Hope Squad. The Hope Squad received a grant, a peer-to-peer suicide prevention grant, so that's going to be used to help purchase self-harm and anxiety counseling workbooks and sensory tools and fidgets for their program. So congratulations, that's a student-written grant, and they're going to do great things with it. Wanted to really just a sincere thank you to Emily Broom, Greg Nelson, Jen Detloff, and others involved in the kindergarten orientation. Just a really neat event. I was able to attend, and you know, just a lot of excitement seeing students coming, some of them for the first time into the building, and just a great first impression for the district, and even an earlier impression, the 4K orientation also. Very well done. All of those are happening, people getting ready. Just before break, the middle school and high school choirs toured, did a vocal tour, and we traveled around to the building, so just amazing talent, and just love that. Them sharing their talents with others. Also wanted to give a little update. We continue to move forward in the work with the village and the Town and Country Engineering, who's working on the Exchange Street project to provide trees to our students to use in their mill work for their student projects. So just off some of those emails going around about where to drop off the trees, and it's really neat not only that the village is excited about it, but the engineers that are involved in the project are really excited to be a part of something like that. So our students will really benefit from that, and it saves the district a ton of money and puts those trees to good use. Also wanted to acknowledge it's survey season, so we just had our parent guardian survey was done. We had 704 surveys completed. I'd like to see a lot more, but it was 685 last year, so we went up in terms of our response rate. The staff survey is coming up as well, and of course, as you know, we did, for the first time, did a student survey in January, February. I'll be sharing those results with you soon. I also have some photos to share with you from around the district. So the carnival, I know some of you were there, was so well attended. So we are 2 for 2 on our fun events. Middle school event was so well attended, and this winter carnival was amazing. The organization was just, I couldn't believe how they transformed that gym. It had a nice flow. The whole facility had a really nice flow. They used the hallways, the cafeteria. Just a really, really great and well-run event. It made for a really special day, so it was fun to be there and see all the excitement. I know families were very appreciative, so thanks, the PTO really took the lead on organizing this, so really appreciate them for that. Had an evacuation drill, and I know when some people saw this on social media, they thought, well, if it's a tornado drill, shouldn't we be inside because of those ominous skies? No, that was a nice day, relatively, but we continue to do our monthly drills, and I thought it was nice to acknowledge some of the safety things that we do, of course, in the district. Some Pi Day in 7th grade math, always a fun day. I know when I was a middle school principal, that was one of my favorite days, in addition to having a lot of pie to eat around. A lot of excitement, and math teachers really get worked up over that day, and so do our students, so very fun celebration there. You know, what else can I say? I don't know exactly what we're doing there, but Mr. Genrick is having fun. You know, some of that kind of fun and playful attitude of our buildings and grounds staff, our custodial staff, it's just great. The kids love being around him. I know when I was going to school, that was certainly not anybody I even really wanted to be by. They weren't quite so warm and friendly, so he's goofy and also a great three-point shot. So we had a couple of the middle school staff members presented at the Wisconsin State Reading Association Conference. So just really highlighting some of the work that they do. They did some co-teaching together last year, Katie Miller and Mari Saunders, or 2 years ago, I guess, when I was there, and continue to share their wisdom and expertise. So really impressed, and I know their session went really well. Also, you might have seen this online, some acknowledgement from a state senator, you know, for our retiring, unfortunately, Jill Rundy retiring, former Wisconsin Teacher of the Year, and just an amazing human and amazing educator. So we continue to spend the next few months recognizing her, and a very nice surprise and an honor. You heard about the presentation, you know, just a really neat opportunity for our students to really bring history alive and learn from our resident experts. You may have heard that one of our very own teachers Madison is a Cole Award winner, a Cole Fellow, so congratulations to Madison. We had several other nominees in the district, but that was our one recipient there, so congratulations to her. I think that concludes that part of the presentation. I'll share some upcoming events, and board members, you can jump in when I'm done with any other things you'd like to recognize in the district. Lots going on in April. April is National Autism Acceptance Month, Hmong Heritage Month, Arab American Heritage Month, National School Library Month. We certainly are blessed to have amazing facilities and amazing library media specialists and amazing library media assistants. A really great program, something we're really proud of. It is also, as you saw earlier from the Connect Club, it is National Associate Principals Week. Very, very difficult job. You are putting out fires kind of all day long, and the pace is intense, and we have such a great team. So thank you to them. They are unsung heroes often. Obviously, coming up this week, we also have Paraprofessionals Day, recognizing our support staff. That is going to be on Wednesday. Official School Librarian Day is on Thursday. And then the quarter ends, which is really a kind of a middle school thing. And then the 9th, so next week, is Prisoner of War Remembrance Day. It's one of our state recognized days. And then we also have, we'll be breaking, the festival Breaking the Fast, the end of Ramadan is coming up. So Eid al-Fitr is coming up. And then the new staff and mentor dialogue dinner is coming up on the 10th. So that's after school, board members invited. We'll be at the Breakwater. We have our retreat on the 11th, so fun times together there. As was mentioned, Day of Silence. American Creed Day is the 13th. And then on the 15th, we're back here for another board meeting, which will be Kate's last board meeting. So we will celebrate Kate at that time. And that's all I had. What do board members, anything you want to recognize?
I don't have anything specific, Aaron, but I appreciate the way you acknowledge staff across the district here, be it teacher, support staff, counselor, custodians. It's just as a small reflection of what our whole district is about. We have fabulous staff here, and we're very fortunate to have them. And again, I appreciate you highlighting some of them, realizing there's many more that we don't, and I don't want to say we don't have time for them, because we
Yeah.
always have to make time, but there's many more out there.
Thank you for that, Tom. Anything else?
I don't think so. Anybody? All right, moving on. We have our first action item, and it is action on adoption of Human Growth and Development Guide. Administration recommends that the adoption of the updated Human Growth and Development Guide as recommended by the HGD Committee. If you're in favor of this, the following motion, so I'll need a motion before we can start discussion to approve the Human Growth and Development Guide.
I'll make that motion.
Bruce?
I can second that.
Megan? All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the Human Growth and Development Guide as recommended. Any discussion?
I think that, this is a topic that is people are very passionate about. I think there's never going to be full agreement, but I think in a lot of ways it's important to listen to the community and the parents. And so based on kind of some of the public comments that we've heard today, I feel like it would be reasonable to go back to the committee and ask for a little bit more guidance specifically on the introduction of when it's appropriate to start teaching, gender identity and feelings of attraction, and how we're going to plan on incorporating that into the curriculum. I think that it's an important topic, and I don't think it should be eliminated by any means, but I think it's reasonable to ask for a little bit more data on the appropriate time to do that. So that would be my feeling on this, would be to postpone the motion for now until we get a little bit more data.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes.
Tom?
This is something doesn't have anything to do with the content of the Human Growth and Development Plan. It deals with how much more can we expect teachers to do. We keep talking about the teachers' plates are already full. What are we going to take away so they can provide time? And I know they're going to build time in social studies and health, but it's something new, especially at the K-2 level. We always talking about, their plates are already full, but we don't do anything about it. We try to replace things sometimes, but this is more than replacement. This is what I would consider an add-on, especially at the K-2 level. That's my first point. Second point is, what if we don't do anything? What if we do not bring down some of the curriculum to at the K2 level, but keep it at the 3, 4 level on up? What would the issue be if we did that? Thirdly, I know there was representation on the committee by teachers, but I wonder what the staff at Wabisa and the staff at the primary school, how they feel about this. You know, is it something that they can do? Can they wrap their arms around it? And I don't know the answer to that. I know we had reps on the committee, and they did wrap their hands around it. And then something that I wrote down, but someone else already mentioned it, is it developmentally appropriate? You know, we talked about, we heard it tonight, it's a personal issue for many, but it's a common issue for all. And again, I just raised that question, because we're talking about 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. And I can remember when my kids came through, my grandson's going through now in a different school district, I just questioned, is it developmentally appropriate? And the last one, again, is what if we don't bring the curriculum down to K2? Keep it at the grade 3 on up. And I concur with you, Kate. I think we should delay voting on this until we get more information. The last comment I will make is that it's rare that I would go against a committee's recommendation. We put committees together, they're cross-representation, and who am I to change that? But I'm also here to represent the constituents here in the school district. So that's my input.
Bruce?
I like what both of you have said. At the same time, it's something that I really spent a lot of time, particularly this weekend. I was very impressed with the presentation made 2 weeks ago. I thought you guys did a phenomenal job. And it's kind of interesting. In fact, I was talking to Superintendent Tarnitzer about this evening. It's like everything was kind of quiet, and all of a sudden things started happening. It was last week, kind of we got near the end of the week. So, I mean, I really spent a lot of time thinking about it. And this is no way a reflection of, how I'm going to vote on this thing. But I think in some ways the public does need to understand where this came from, because I talked with a number of members who are actually on that committee. And right off the bat, one of the things that bothered me originally, as a teacher, I always had my materials, and then I kind of wove my lesson plans, my curricula, around what I already had, which made sense. But again, I was just one of a bunch of social studies teachers, and we had a textbook, and then I might have to search for materials that could supplement that. I do think their argument is, and I think this is one thing that the public doesn't quite understand, is that they want to set up their standards, or what I would call their objectives first, and I think this is something they should be applauded for, would be the idea that you want to make sure that all of your staff are on the same page. And Tom, getting back to how to implement this thing, or a teacher, I also want to applaud the fact that you do it by reading stories. That's how I taught history. I always did readings. And then from that, I did kind of a Socratic method. I don't think I've ever been a particularly effective lecturer. But I like the fact that you would have that. In his response to at least one of the members who wrote, from the community who wrote him, Mr. Tarnitzer said, we haven't chosen those. And I know that became like a red flag. Some people are like, what? You haven't chosen that? And that's my point. No, they want to set the standard first, and then they want to find the appropriate reading to match that. And therefore, all of your teachers would be on the same page, literally. They'd be saying the same thing. You'd end up having a series of questions that would be the same for each teacher. It wouldn't vary. And I think there's something really important about that, because otherwise it is kind of a frightening thing that you could literally have someone interpreting, well, I thought we could teach this, and someone said, no, I thought this. Here it's pretty well decided. And the point I want to make is, Mr. Tarnisher made clear that we haven't got to that point, and when that time comes, what we could do is we could actually have this open to the public, because in some ways, that's the guts of it. You know, what are you going to actually be teaching? Well, here's the reading. What do you think of this? We have 2 different ones. You can look at it. Here are the questions that we're thinking about. So I think in some ways, there's a bit of panic on the part of the public, and I think I want to at least try to understand that as well as I could. Yesterday at church, I happened to be talking to a former elementary school teacher, a person who lives in the community, had been a teacher for like 30-something years. And I asked this individual what they thought about some of these ideas, because I thought, you know, again, I was a high school, middle school, high school teacher, and I can understand the concerns that some of the public have. And this former teacher told me a really interesting story. He said, yeah, we never would have done that. And yet then this person relayed kind of a really nightmare scenario. There were a couple of students in 1st and 2nd grade who've been molested by a person in the community. And they're going to school, and this teacher and the other staff realize we have nothing in place. We don't know how to deal with this. We don't know how to talk to the kids about this thing because we don't have anything in the curriculum. And so I think it's something we need to realize. And it just leads me to a greater thought, which is, and this was, again, talking to other members of the committee, it's already going on. You have kids coming into kindergarten who their parents are saying, we want them to be addressed in such a way. It's not like this is something that is going to come out of, like, you know, it's again opening Pandora's box. It's like it's already there. And how do you're not going to get that toothpaste, I'm mixing metaphors here, sorry. You're not going to get that toothpaste back in that tube. It's not going away. You know, those kids, those parents, I hate to say it, I always carry a Constitution with me in my backpack. They have rights too. And I don't think we can just say, oh, sorry, you know, I don't agree with this. I don't think we should be talking about it. Well, in some ways, it's already out there. And then the last one that really hit me hardest is I was talking to another member of the committee, and they said, we had these discussions, and in fact, and I think there's something to be said, perhaps, you know, you do postpone, you delay, and you have it. I think even the people who are here or have written letters, if you really came down to it, there were people on this committee who thought we should be starting this as early as 4K. And so they tried to come up with a compromise, and they came up with maybe 1st, 2nd. I don't believe there's going to be a definitive answer that everyone's going to say, oh, that's what I agree with. It's out there. The last point I guess I want to mention was just the internet. The impact that the internet has had. That, again, talk about a Pandora's box. It's out there. And I guess Pandora's box is the internet is a great example of Pandora's box. It provides, you know, potentially some of the most horrible, evil things out there. And yet, in some ways, it does allow us some hope. And let's hope that we can kind of work together as humans, as we kind of progress through, I guess, our civilization. You know, there's always going to be changes. It's going to be something that is going to be ongoing. But I do feel like, in some ways, I think try to understand what that committee was trying to do. They had these same questions. They spent hours debating. Should it be 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 1st grade, you know, 4-year-olds. How do you come up with a compromise? And so try to understand where they're coming from. And I guess we got to just have faith that we've got some good folks out there. So I didn't answer anything. But I did comment that I like what you guys said, but at the same time, I want at least the public to kind of understand, how did this committee come up with some of these points that they did?
Thank you.
Yeah, I have some thoughts to share too. I think I hadn't really considered the idea of postponement before tonight, so I'm just processing that. I think I'm not opposed to it, Because I am grateful that we changed the process and delayed our vote for a month so that we could hear back from people.
Yes.
We heard public comments, we heard, thoughts and opinions to the board privately. And then if you're on social media, I'm sure you saw Facebook. I'm a little disappointed that it blows up so much on social media, and then comparatively, we have not as many people here having public comment. I think that's disappointing, to be very frank. So I'm very grateful for the people who have submitted officially to get their thoughts and really engage in the real process. I think it is important that we consider all of those things, and I wonder if one thing, and I did email Aaron and Melissa about this today, I had a thought that maybe it would be helpful, and I don't know, it's maybe putting the cart before the horse, but having examples of what talking about gender identity at, first grade looks like. And that might help people understand, it might be something that most people would be really comfortable with if we had some examples. And I know we can't have examples and say, this is for sure what it would look like, because we haven't developed that yet, to Bruce's point. But I think that might be helpful, and that might be, an argument in favor of postponing. I wouldn't necessarily want to postpone and have it be part of the new board's decision, because I think we've had, there's a lot of history and in terms of information that we would have to repeat. Not that I don't think any new board members would have trouble picking that up, but I do think that I did kind of wanted to speak a little bit towards some of the themes that I saw in the feedback. One of them, is I think we've kind of talked about the age appropriateness of it. And I don't think we have to talk anymore about that. I had some notes, but I think we've covered that. But I think the other theme that came through is there are some people who feel like we shouldn't be talking about it at all in schools. And I wanted to challenge people to push back on that, because we've had two committees now, a strategic plan committee and this human growth and development committee, comprised of healthcare individuals, staff, students, community members, administration, and their expertise does shine through. And we have made a commitment in our mission to recognize, meet the needs of every learner every day. And so we have to recognize every learner and who they are. We literally cannot do that if we teach only to the majority. And we live in a community that's really, it's majority cisgender, heteronormative, and our community itself won't teach our students what it will be like in the global community. And so we will be failing that promise to equity if we're not sharing with them what it looks like to be out in the world, and how to, be a thoughtful citizen and someone who's compassionate and celebrating differences, as opposed to judging them, for different backgrounds, whether it's ability or race or gender, sexual orientation or religion. I think this is a really important topic, where, equity is not only to focus on giving voice to marginalized groups, but it also focuses on educating the non-marginalized groups, right? We are in a world that is changing dramatically and quickly. And I think we really do a disservice to our students if we're not following that. One of the things we're reviewing later tonight about the new equity resolution, it literally says, delivering a fully inclusive curriculum throughout a student's education that reflect the diversity of all and prepare students for engaging with an interconnected global society. I think we can't, every decision that we make as a board has to be including that. And I think we've done a great job of going through the process to get that. And I think postponing a vote again to get more voices, that's great. I think our very homogeneous community needs to have some, we're just recognize that we're not going to do service to our students without considering that change is happening. And it's not, some of this change is actually pushed by our students because they are younger and younger, recognizing that they don't fit into, the binary things that we have in our society. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. So, I'm hearing that we don't have a real issue or concern with postponing the vote on this action, and I'm torn. I want to respect the committee as well. A lot of thought and time and effort went into putting this committee together with all the appropriate representations and such. So I'm hesitant to go against their recommendation at this point. However, I think it's obvious that the board is willing to postpone this vote for a short period of time and gather whatever additional information we can in terms of the age appropriateness of gender identity and such. And I also would agree that this is something that, based on the history and the process that we followed, I think it would be most appropriate if this board took action on the committee's recommendations. So that being said, I think next meeting would be a time that I would be willing to table this action for 2 weeks. Is that all right?
That's fine with me. The only addition I would make is that it doesn't have to be all or none. It doesn't have to be where we do not approve that WOW document that I talked about a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
That is a WOW document. But there might be pieces that we can move around a little.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, we put this committee together in such a way that we would have the best resources available, and I think we accomplished that. The qualifications of everyone on this committee was beyond repute. And most of them, in all honesty, knows more about these things than I do. That's why, we put these panels or committees together with folks that we believe give us the best chance of a fair and equitable resolution.
So I think,
Help me.
don't we have to act on the original motion?
Yes, we do.
But, so I think personally what I would be asking for, what I think would be good for the board to hear is for Melissa or Mr. Weaver to come back and kind of give us a little more detail on age appropriateness of certain things. Now, I will preface, I am in full support of this being taught. So, you know, in a perfect world, yes, people would be talking about this at home. It doesn't always happen that way. So, you know, in the world we live in, it has to be introduced because these kids are exposed to it. It's just a matter of timing. And so I think for me, what would be helpful is presenting some guidance on how we came up with this recommendation in the first place at this age. And also maybe some guidance on what recommendations typically are for introduction of this discussion. Now, I understand that it's age appropriate, but, you know, when do children best understand something of this complicated nature? And we may have many different resources and different opinions about when that is, but I'd like to just see a little bit more data on that. I'd also like to see a little bit more about kind of locally and nationally, when is this typically being introduced in the curriculums? So in order to make a decision, and I am in agreement that we could do this at the next meeting, but I think we need some more data before we can do that. That would be my personal opinion.
And I would say that I agree with that, and then add on, I would like to see examples of what the age appropriate would be at those levels, if it's possible.
I think it would be, just thinking of what the board is looking to ask. So within 2 weeks, I want to make sure that we're able to provide to you and to the community what you're hoping for. And so are we talking specifically about gender identity? Are we talking, what specifically, because there's a lot in the guide. So what are you specifically looking for in terms of examples in those areas? It sounds like the rationale for when to introduce them, any data to support that, what's being done in other districts. Is it specific to gender identity?
And I think feelings of attraction.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Feelings of attraction.
Yep.
Those were the two that were the lion's share of the comments that I got.
That's what I would say.
The emails that I got. So that's what I'm thinking, is that we just look at that portion of it.
And the feelings of attraction include the sexual response cycle? Like, is that the umbrella term for all of that? Like, I would say, if it's not, then I would say it's those three, that it's the sexual response cycle, feelings of attraction, and gender identity seemed like the most talked about from the community.
My only question then is, again, their whole premise is based on, we'll set the standard first, and then we'll try to find the appropriate readings.
Right.
And what you're suddenly saying to them, in effect, is, no, we want to know what the readings you're going to choose? Is that what you want to do?
Well,
Take a
you
look
know,
at the
it's,
readings.
what I would say is, and Melissa, you can jump in here if I'm missing something. I'm trying to think like you. I don't know how well I'm doing. Because this is gonna be, you know, Melissa having, you know, been a part of the committee, and we'll be working with the committee to provide you with this, so. You know, the topics aren't new topics. The introduction, the age at which they're introduced is new. So we do have materials based on what we have done, you know, with our, you know, so that's probably fairly easy to provide. You know, to put it at a younger grade level, we, you know, may or may not have those exact, but you could get the sense of what that would be. Is that fair to say? She nodded, Melissa nodded her head, yes.
In the affirmative. Well, I know I just jotted down a couple things, and it was that this is too important to get wrong. And I don't think it ever hurts anything to take a pause when you have questions. And I think the comments, between the comments, and you know, word on the street, more or less, is and I said this before, we have no problems with what we're going to teach. We have some questions about when we should teach it. So I think what I would recommend maybe we do, we have to act on the motion that's before us. We can choose not to do this, to table this action until the next, well, somebody can craft that motion, but I think I'll call for the vote on the original motion.
Before we do that, I'm trying to figure out how you could do what we're asking. You got 2 points there. One is valid, that, you know, it is the 5 of us who've kind of gone through this process so far. I'm very confident that the 2 people who I'm running against could get up to speed on this relatively quickly, even if I were to lose. So then there'd be 2 new people on there. If I win, it'd be one other person. I'm not worried about that. I just don't see how Melissa can possibly present to us, and then we're gonna, or would you vote afterwards? Is that what you would do? Okay, because I don't know if you can get all the materials. Well, maybe you can.
The other thing I would say is, you know, do you want more community input?
Right.
That's been proposed here, that's been acknowledged by the board. I'm not pushing you one way or another. I'd say the one thing that I would say, love our community. I love the people that email, the people that came and spoke tonight. I have great admiration for them. The people that sent us public comments, I appreciate that. I don't want the board to make decisions based on what you read on social media from people we don't know. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they know, you know. And those people that took the time to share their perspective directly with board members, that to me is community engagement, not social media. So I'm not telling you that you need to get more community input, but if you did want to get more input, we can put the changes, you know, on the website for people to view, to be transparent, you know, to give people more information. We can do that. Just know that that takes time.
That's what I think.
Takes time to do.
So why don't we just back up the timeline altogether?
You certainly can.
That was my point.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, I think you had indicated it would be nice to do it with this board in place already. Bruce is saying he's confident that whoever comes on the board will be able to learn about this rather quickly. And we're asking a lot of information within 2 weeks.
That's what I think.
Again, you know,
Probably. That's probably unreasonable.
Yeah, that was my point.
I would think so, yeah.
Like I said, it's too important to get wrong.
Well, so I'm just gonna be really frank and maybe a little vulnerable. There's probably not much that's gonna change my mind in approving the committee's recommendation. I trust that what they have discussed and spent so many hours committing to, I trust that they went through the process, it was an appropriate process, and they made a determination. And I trust our extremely competent expertise teachers to know what age appropriate, developmentally appropriate is for the age groups. I will also say that as we talk about, and I think I don't have statistics for other people or other groups that are marginalized, but when we talk about gender identity, the mental health of the kids who have gender identity somewhere on the spectrum that doesn't fit the binary, most of them know by the time they're 3, 4, and they just don't have language to put to it. I can tell you that my family would not have experienced suicidal ideation had my kid known how to talk about it, had I known how to talk about it earlier. I think with the changing world, I mean, there's just not much more. I think about those kids who feel lost, who feel like they don't fit, and giving them and their peers education that's age appropriate, that might be really simple. I mean, it might just be saying these other things exist. Like, some people feel like girls some days, some people feel like boys some days, sometimes they feel like neither. It might not go beyond that, but giving that a voice at an age when most kids are probably aware of it, that they're different, or that they don't fit right into those boxes. I think I trust our team, our school district team, to figure out that they will figure out how to do that in the right way for our kids. So I'll just go on the record to say that there's not much that will change that. I mean, I think we could use a little more information, but it's probably not going to change my mind.
I tend to agree.
Mm-hmm.
However, given the board's inclination to want to take a little bit more time, I'm not against that. Again, I'll say again, it's too important to get wrong, and I don't think a short pause is gonna make things any less difficult, probably. I suspect that when we get the additional information, we may very well have the same questions and have the same concerns. However, just given that a majority of the board would like to take a pause, I would get behind that.
Well, and here's what I'll say, because I may not be here for the final, is that I think it's important that we all have our personal feelings on it, but I think it's important to also listen to, the community. And I think while a lot of transgender children, I agree, they do know at a very young age, children who identify as their gender assigned at birth don't always understand the concepts the same way that someone who, is going through this at a young age understands. And so while I agree with you 100% on that, I think we just need to maybe see what the recommendations are. So since I may not be here, that is just my 2 cents.
I know, so Melissa stepped up to the mic. I just wanted to provide an opportunity, a cut to you too. Good job back there. If there was something you wanted to add, because I'm sure you have some thoughts.
I do. Some of the questions you asked I can answer right now.
Okay.
I can't answer all of them right now. And then why I felt compelled to come here is waiting 2 weeks, fine. Waiting much more than that, if we're going to implement this next school year, will get complicated. And so if it's postponed much more than 2 weeks, we have the teachers, the Human Growth and Development Teacher Committee meets at the end of April, and our plan is to look at the approved guide, to decide what changes are necessary, what summer work we need to do to get ready, to get people signed up and schedule the summer work, and to kind of begin all of those processes. So if the board chooses not to act at this meeting or the next one, and is waiting until May or later to decide, then I would probably request that we don't make the changes for next school year that aren't decided by the next board meeting. Just for an implementation and training and preparation point of view. Would you like me to answer the questions that I can answer now? Sure. Okay. Much of the conversation that I've heard you have here sounded a lot like the conversation at the committee meetings that we had when we discussed gender identity and sexual orientation or feelings of attraction. Very similar concerns were raised in the group, very similar questions were asked, and a lot of that was processed. When kind of wondering, how did we come up with the recommendations in the first place? There were some guiding pieces that we spent a lot of time on at early meetings to guide our decisions. And those were touch points that people would bring up throughout. One of the touch points was the board's resolution in support of LGBTQIA students. And we kind of did a jigsaw activity where each group read different documents and highlighted what they felt was going to be relevant to inform our HGD decisions. And so one of the pieces, actually backing up, was our mission and vision, and they highlighted our vision: an equitable and inclusive community committed to student belonging, achievement, and growth. And then they also highlighted the commitment to safety, that an environment where all members of the school committee feel physically, mentally, and emotionally safe. So those were kind of touch points that they thought within the strategic plan. Within the resolution in support of transgender, non-binary, and all LGBTQIA+ students, McFarland School District is committed to a learning environment that is physically, socially, and emotionally safe for all students. A little bit later, welcoming, safe, and inclusive. A little bit later, the Board of Education and School District of McFarland are committed to honoring, valuing, and affirming our transgender, non-binary, and all LGBTQIA+ students, staff, and families through our policies, practices, and curriculum. And later, the School District of McFarland Board of Education affirms, supports, and values the gender identities and gender expressions of all our students, and will continue to further efforts in our schools to create welcoming, safe, and inclusive learning environment for our transgender, non-binary, and all LGBTQIA students. Those were pieces that we used. Now, I hear certainly that you can support all of that and still say, what is the appropriate age for the conversations to begin, certainly. But in terms of what were some of the pieces that informed the decision, those were pieces that did. Another question that came up kind of near the end, particularly of the gender identity question, was, do we have students attending CEPS who are transgender and who are openly and out transgender? And the answer is yes. There are students in our classrooms who are old enough to understand what that feels like for them. And the idea was, if students are old enough to be transgender, then they're old enough to learn about what it means to be transgender. We did certainly have the conversation that, 5, 6, 7-year-olds don't understand everything, and things go, when we're trying to teach them math and reading, there are things that we try to teach them that certainly go over their heads. And if we were to introduce a topic of gender as a spectrum, there will be some students who hear that and it really resonates with them. And there are some students who will hear it and be completely confused or miss the idea of what was being taught at all. Which led to, again, I'm trying to recreate an hour's worth of conversation of a group that was then tabled and revisited at another conversation, which I thought would be shorter the second time, and it was another hour the second time. And it really did spin around in circles. And it came to this idea that, okay, 4th grade is too late. That we really, with all of the decisions we made, we said, our goal is for students to have the information they need to make decisions. And we wanted to present that information before it was happening, so they'd kind of have a safe, factual information, and then, decisions would happen. So when we talked about puberty, okay, when are students going through puberty? We need to make sure to talk about puberty before they enter into puberty. Well, some students enter puberty at 8 years old, so should we be talking about it at 2nd grade? And it was a lengthy conversation there, and we ended up with, okay, let's move it from the spring of 4th grade to the fall of 4th grade. So long conversation. Gender identity, feelings of attraction, those things, it came to 4th grade felt too late. Okay, 3rd grade feels okay. 2nd grade, unsure. 1st grade, unsure. Kindergarten, no. Like, it was kind of this, okay, where is it? And then we'd get in between 2 grades and we'd say, okay, this grade or this grade. And it was just really long conversations and people sharing things that echoed a bit of what I heard in this group of the students who need to hear the message will hear the message. The other students may not even know what's going on, but they may hear just enough to spark something and remember something so that when they hear it again later, there's at least something in there for them to hold on to. Conversations around, are we going to ask students to pick their gender identity? No. We would not say, identify as something. We would just say, there's this idea that some students feel this way, some people feel this way, some people feel that way. We are kind to all people. And that would probably be about the extent of the conversation. There would be, we've always at 4th and 5th grade read a book and then had some discussion guidelines that all of the teachers have access to. That would be how it would look. It wouldn't be a lengthy conversation. It wouldn't be multiple days, more than likely. It would probably be a touch point. A topic that you didn't ask me to go into detail about was the diversity of family structures. That would probably be when this would be discussed within the context of diversity of family structures. Because in addition to students themselves perhaps identifying as transgender at CEPS, perhaps their parents identify as transgender, or their uncles or their neighbors or other people. And so it's this idea of wanting them to understand what it is they're seeing in the world and have language to put to it, to inform just how they're going through the world and meeting and seeing all of the people in their neighborhood. Locally and nationally, I don't have information. That would be something I could come back to. And I'm looking at the questions. How do we come up with it? What recommendations? I have my whole folder, but it would take me too long to find. There are not DPI guidelines on when topics like this should be introduced. There are national sex ed standards. Now, they're called the National Sex Ed Standards, but they are not from the federal government. They're from groups of people, experts in the field, who have put together guidelines. We looked at those in the areas where DPI did not have guidelines. We looked at those guidelines. In general, we thought those recommendations were perhaps a little young for us, and many of our recommendations ended up being a little bit older than what was in there. But they had guidelines for, by the end of 2nd grade, students should understand this. By the end of 4th grade, students should understand that. And the gender identity and sexuality pieces were, I believe, included at K2, but that would be something I could come back to with specifics. So those are the questions that I remember that I can answer. The feelings of attraction, the discussion really revolved around the idea of having a crush and the idea of who are you going to marry, and K2 students having fake or I'm gonna marry so-and-so, and I'm gonna, I'm in love with so-and-so. And regardless of if the person you're in love with is the same gender or a different gender from yourself, at K2 they say, no, you don't. You are too young for that. That is not appropriate. We wouldn't be asking students to have or know what their sexual identity is. We would just want to say, sometimes, you might feel attracted to this person, or you might feel attracted to that person. It's all fine, and you're kind of too young for all of it anyway. But also, you can have friends who are boys, and you can have friends who are girls, and having a friend doesn't mean you're going to marry that person. And if you see this person being friends with that person, it means they're friends, and it doesn't mean they're going to get married, and it doesn't mean that they're having attraction feelings. That's what attraction feelings would look like at 2nd grade, more than, getting into the puberty of it all and the sexual intercourse of it all. It wouldn't be about intercourse at all. It would be about, in my household, and I shared this at the committee, in kindergarten, my daughter knew who was going to get married to who, and she was very concerned because she wanted to live with her friend who is a girl, and she's a girl, but she wasn't sure she wanted to marry her, but she really wanted to live with her. And I had to explain, you can live with her without being married. You could just be roommates. She's like, what? And that was at kindergarten. That's what this marriage idea, it is nebulous, and she wouldn't have necessarily understood a whole lot more, but the idea that she can really like her friend and want to live with her friend and get 1,000 cats with her friend, which was her main concern in the whole process, all of that is fine, and it doesn't mean anything about any sort of feelings of attraction. It's feelings of friendship, and those are great feelings to have.
Thank you.
How young is the Dane County survey? Youth survey?
7th grade.
It starts in 7th grade?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I guess all I would add is, I think we all knew from the get-go that this was gonna be an issue that you may be able to reach consensus, but it is not gonna be unanimous. We went through COVID, as you may recall, and that had similar comments and concerns. We had a lot of division within the community. And I understand that to probably a bit lesser a degree, I knew this was gonna be controversial. And I'm not sure that taking the additional time is gonna, enlighten us any further than what we already are. I certainly appreciate your comment concerning timeframe. I don't think it would be responsible of us not to at least recognize the recommendations that this committee made. However, mechanically, I'm not quite sure how to handle this right here now, but we will get it handled. Then we come to the time frame. Are we gonna be able to do enough in 2 weeks to make a more informed decision or vote than we have right now?
I guess we have to be very cautious not to make decisions based on specific timelines. Because that would open us up for, maybe we aren't making the best decision.
Well, it sounds like going beyond the 15th would probably require not making any changes to the curriculum this year.
And I would say, I would agree with Tom, sorry to interject, I would agree with Tom, it's not all or nothing. It would just be whatever you want implemented for next school year. It would be very helpful if you could tell me that at the next board meeting. And then whatever still needs anything else, it would just be complicated to really adequately prepare to do that next school year.
I'm not sure there's anything beyond the gender identity, and I think those are the two. We just need to decide when they should be introduced, not if they're gonna be introduced. I think, do we all agree that we should be having
Yep.
health and human development, right?
Certainly.
And I think most of the work's done. I think we just need to gather in what information we need because we're gonna come back and make a vote. And if we've got more information, that's great. But otherwise, I think, I would feel that it would be irresponsible of the board not to honor the committee that worked so long and hard on these recommendations. And I think not making any changes would not be honoring that commitment that we made.
But we could make a motion and vote on it in 2 weeks, adding 1 or 2 addendums
Sure.
to that motion.
Sure.
And I think the other thing is do we want to, pull more of the community regarding those specific items or not? Because that's gonna take more time.
That's what,
Yeah.
that's what I think would be a nightmare.
If we're gonna go out and seek community input, 2 weeks isn't long enough. Then we're into what's fair to our staff and teachers that are expected to teach these classes. They're kind of left hanging, I would imagine. So,
Melissa, I have a question. You said the people that, you know, I guess were the experts, at least in talking about these 2 points, they were actually advocating to go even younger.
Yes, and experts, I think,
And that's what I would like to know. Who are they?
right.
That's what I would like to know.
There was often in the group, you know, well, what do the experts say, or who gets to decide this? And I was like, this group of people is who gets to decide this. There isn't, you know, by state statute, none of these topics have to be covered at all. And so it is a recommendation of a group of community members. You know, the committee were community members. The committee had some staff on it, but by statute, it was, you know, less than a quarter were staff. It was 3/4 or more community members. You know, I don't know that anyone on the committee would have said they are an expert. I think they shared personal experiences, they shared opinions, they shared, you know, experiences of their children, of college roommates, you know, they just shared life experiences and made a recommendation. And I think when I spoke earlier, there were people who also disagreed. And there were people who said, this shouldn't happen until 7th grade. And it was, you know, this conversation about, you know, not if, but when. And it comes down to, at some point, we had to make a decision. So it was a lot of discussion and sharing ideas, questions, going through the resources that I mentioned, and then ultimately just making a decision. The people who wanted it to be younger said, you know what, how about we move the ball, I think the phrase was, move the ball forward or make some improvements in their mind at this point, and then 2-3 years from now, when there's the next committee, that committee could perhaps continue making changes, making it younger. Maybe we've learned some things, maybe it's old, you know, who knows what the future holds. But the recommendations of the committee were the result of compromises that people could live with for the people in the room. Did the committee represent every viewpoint in McFarland? I can't possibly know. Did the committee, you know, were they representative of the community? I can't know that. They were the people who volunteered to sign up and then were randomly selected.
And my personal opinion is that the makeup of that committee was pretty much beyond reproach. I mean, I was really impressed with the credentials of those that I've followed up, and I certainly trust them. We don't do these things lightly. You know, the board could just sit and listen to the presentation and look at our paperwork and vote. But I think we care too much about it to not at least make an effort to gather information over the next couple of weeks that may enable us to come to an easier decision. And I think we should probably confine it to those two topics. Or, you know, we agree that needs to be taught. We just can't quite figure out when it should be taught.
And Megan had brought up 3 topics with the gender identity, feelings of attraction, and then the sexual response cycle. So is it all 3 of those topics or just 2 of the 3? Because I do think they are separate, Megan.
Yeah.
I think,
I would say
given
3.
that we should probably look at those 3.
And I can follow up on the questions that remained about when they are taught locally or nationally. I can bring that information back to the
That
board.
would be helpful.
And if there are other specific, I feel like I answered a lot of the other questions that were brought up, but if there are things that you are feeling like I didn't yet bring that information, please let me know, and I can bring that in 2 weeks as well.
I mean, I think it might be even helpful to have, you know, an example of, this is a book they currently read aloud in 4th grade to introduce the topic of this. You know, this is how it references it.
And the list of questions, I think, is good. I have those as well.
just to get a sense of what the lessons currently look like, and then if moving to a younger level, this is what you could anticipate the
Okay.
changes being.
And I would hope that no one misinterprets my reluctance to vote on it tonight as not trusting the committee. I have a wealth of
No, I
experience.
didn't mean to infer that.
But I think that might be an interpretation by some folks out there, and that's not the case at all. Rather, it's a case of, we're gonna make a decision. Let's make the best decision we can on the information that's provided.
So we have a motion on the table to approve the committee's recommendation for changes made to the Health and Human Development curriculum. We'll need to vote on that first, and then possibly craft another motion regarding the collecting of additional information to
Can I
be.
make a suggestion, it's a question? Can we vote on it tonight with the addendums that we're talking about?
I don't know. I don't know if we can do that.
I don't,
Yeah, I don't think we
I think you have to vote on the
I don't
one.
think you can.
Because it could potentially change people's minds
You can
about-
vote and add an amendment at a later point, but you would have to be voting on what you've been presented. You can't vote on an amendment you haven't seen,
Right.
or an addendum that you haven't seen. You could add an addendum at a later point.
All right, and, not approving it
Yeah.
just tables it. It doesn't mean that we're not gonna vote on the recommendation of the committee. We're just gonna do it after we've collected a little bit more information.
You could vote not to approve it tonight, and at the next meeting, you could have a vote, somebody makes a motion, seconded, to approve it as it currently is.
Yep.
I mean, you can change your mind at any, in the sense of any action you take,
I
so.
just think mechanically, we should probably just not approve this one and then,
Can we
see
make a
where we
motion
are.
tonight to address it at the next meeting?
I think so.
Is that how that would go?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think you need to make a motion to put something on the agenda.
Okay.
No, we can just put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Make it an action item. Okay, so we'll do that. There is a motion on the table to accept the recommendation of the Health and Human
Growth and
Development Committee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, say no. No?
No.
Nay, no.
Okay, the motion is rejected unanimously, 5-0. So we'll take no action tonight. And I don't think we necessarily need to do anything tonight to preclude the 15th. We can just make it an agenda item.
That's the new date that we're aiming for.
That's the new date.
And I just think, is there any thoughts that you have about what you need, the information that the
Yes.
board feels they need?
Yep.
Please send that to us immediately.
I also have the information that you just sort of summarized for us.
All right, then, moving on. Next is action on first reading of revised McFarland School District Sustainability Resolution. Resolution in support of diversity and equity and policy 2105.01. District resolution in support of diversity and equity, educational equity. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Second?
I'll second.
Kate? Discussion.
So I just want to give you a little bit of, background on this. Reminder, this is a first reading. So what we had done is gone over, and we, meaning the board and I, during one of our work sessions, had reviewed the resolutions that has been approved by the district and identified the two that we're discussing this evening as being somewhat outdated and worthy of improvements based on some progress the district has made and things we've learned over time. So the first of this is the sustainability resolution. The original one was done in May of 2022, written by staff in collaboration with our high school eco club. This one, again, involved the high school eco club and the resolution. The goal was to kind of broaden it to reflect kind of broaden student involvement, not just the eco club, to provide that flexibility, more kind of responsive timelines to reflect the current status of the work and some of the things that we're doing. So really what it ends up saying is that, the district, acknowledges the threat of climate change, how it impacts young people, confirming, a sense of immediacy, I guess, the limited amount of time to address it, that the district is committed to being a leader in the advancement of sustainable and clean energy, looking at our current levels of waste, that we need to do something, acknowledging that climate change disproportionately affects marginalized groups, and then we need to prepare students for a better future, and really that we're going to work collaboratively together, students and the district, to generate renewable energy ideas and address those. So that's really, there's a lot of words here, but that's essentially what it is. Whereas the other one, the previous one, had things like there will be annual goals developed by the Eco Club by January 31st. This kind of broadens it, that it wouldn't necessarily have to be an eco club. We might not have an eco club. We're trying to make them a little bit more timeless than they currently are. And that was based on our discussion during the work session. So that's that one. Questions, thoughts about that one in specific before I go to the other one?
I think it's well written. Go ahead.
Well, thanks to the Eco Club, Jeff Mahoney, who's, they're virtually joining us for their leadership. It's a neat partnership when the students and the district work together. All right, so then I am going to present something else. The equity resolution, and Brittany's here if we have questions for her as well. So this really comes from the board adopted a resolution in support of diversity and equity in June of 2020, and that was really written in collaboration with a couple of, a student and then a former student, Letitia Hollard and Ethan Farrell. And that led to the development of a policy. So we're looking at both the resolution and the policy because we currently have a policy. And the policy was adopted in May of 2021. And, there's been a lot of progress made, and I think one of the things that we really wanted to look at in this resolution was broadening it. It was very focused on race exclusively, and yet it was called diversity and equity. So we wanted to broaden the scope of that, and that it met a need at the time. It was also very specific in terms of like the number of hours for professional development and the topics. And those needs changed, specifically the topics. And so, one of the things that Brittany did was got feedback from all of the buildings during presentations and led that discussion. She shared it with the Family Equity Council. She shared it with the McFarland Equity Progress, student and staff equity leaders to get their input on that, looked at other models, and then came forward with this proposed revision, and then really a replacement of the current policy that connects with our mission and vision, and including our definition of educational equity, which is a very encompassing definition. And then just talks about our commitments, equitably supporting all students and staff, fostering equitable opportunities, celebrating the values of a diverse community, uplifting, incorporating student voice, standing against and acting swiftly to address words of racism, bigotry, intolerance, discrimination, hate, and violence, implementing best practices for anti-racism, anti-bias, cultural responsiveness, diversity, and inclusivity, developing that fully inclusive curriculum, which Melissa shared earlier. And then the annual professional development. So that gives us the flexibility to do that. So it's a bit broader in time and more timeless. We also, in both this resolution and the last one, acknowledge that it's built off of the work that was done before, because we don't want to negate that. But I think the board is sensitive to the fact that we revise policies all the time. You know, but it doesn't mean, oh, that policy was bad. It just means we've learned something and it's ready for a change, so. That's
Brittany,
update on that.
do these changes have your blessing?
Absolutely.
Good to hear. Anybody got anything else?
Any questions?
I came prepared.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? Okay, we've got a motion on the table. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Action on first reading of policies, 5460, graduation requirements, 5500, student code of classroom conduct, 7540.02, web content, apps, and services, 8510, wellness policy, and 7250, commemoration of school facilities. Do I have a motion? Or do I have a motion? Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Kate. Second?
I can second that.
Thanks, Megan. Discussion?
Can we go through them again?
Yeah, let's go through them in
Yep.
order.
Okay, 5460,
Actually,
graduation requirements.
I'm not sure what screen again.
But, go ahead.
Page 2 of 3, under, let's see, under C3, they talk about the senior exit interviews and participate in a senior exit interview that includes teachers. What about changing that to educators? And we want to include the community. We do that now.
Yeah. That's pretty simple.
Yeah, and that's a good
Where,
point,
can you,
Tom.
I gotta catch up to where you
Yeah,
are, because I get to make the
replace
changes.
teachers with educators.
So you're on page 2 of 3.
Yep,
Yeah,
under C.
Oh,
C3.
C,
Three.
okay.
Replace teachers with educators and/or community.
I like it. Any issue with that?
It's right here for those at home.
How about 5500,
Oh,
student?
wait a minute.
Oh, you're still there? Okay, all right.
Okay, same page, 2 of 3, the very last sentence talks about a student may be denied participation in graduation activities for disciplinary reasons and for non-payment of fees. Should that be or, and/or? But you might be able to omit that altogether because if you go to page 3 of 3, the very last part says graduation activities and ceremony. A student may be denied participation in graduation activities for disciplinary reasons. Would they be denied
Yeah, that's
participation for
duplicative.
unpaid fees? It's just,
Yes,
Or-
I think that's duplicative, isn't it? I mean, it says it,
Well,
it says
this
it
is,
about the disciplinary reasons, and then it says it about disciplinary reasons again, but it doesn't include the fees.
well,
Right.
one is for actual graduation and then one's for
It says
Ac-
activity.
well, they're both
being
participation.
in
No, participation.
participation.
They both are.
It says activities in both. Activities.
Yeah. I think it just has to be cleaned
Activities.
up.
Graduation
Oh, yeah,
activities.
okay.
So do you want me to eliminate it on page 2 of 3 and then add or fees on page 3?
That's what I would suggest.
So for disciplinary reasons or, what do we call it, non-payment?
Non-payment of fees.
Non-payment
Of
fees.
fees, so take this out, okay. For those watching at home, this is the less exciting part of the school board meeting. So we're gonna add it right here. Thank you. Yeah, it don't make it.
page 3 of 3 again, under B, talks about the student will demonstrate a level of proficiency. And then go down to the last part of that sentence, as set forth above as determined by the high school principal, should that read as determined by the high school administration? Could it be an assistant principal also? That would make that determination?
I think you probably want to keep it being the
Okay.
principal. That's my thought. I know Lauren was on the committee, yes. You're sitting by the high school principal. Yeah, I just think that, because you could have different, ultimately, they're responsible for,
The ultimate response.
ultimately
Yes.
responsible. I appreciate your
I understand.
thoughtfulness
Is
about
that
that.
all right with you,
Is
Brett?
it,
Okay.
He's accepted the responsibility, let it be in the record. Principal Brett Jacobson has accepted responsibility for approving graduation requirements. Thank you.
Anything
Good.
else on that one?
Not that one, no.
5500, Student Code of Classroom Conduct.
Okay, under the Student Code of Classroom Conduct, the third paragraph, the district administrator shall establish procedures to carry out board policy and philosophy. So do we have those set?
The district administrator says, probably, those are our administrative guidelines.
Okay, so should we put that in there, as established by administrative guidelines?
Well, we
Or-
might have procedures in other areas too.
Okay,
I mean, because that's pretty broad to carry out
It is
board
broad.
policy and
Yes.
philosophy, yes. I would say, I wouldn't want to limit us just to administrative guidelines
okay.
on conduct. If that makes sense.
And then under the fourth paragraph, there's some examples, and I know they are not all inclusive, but I wonder if we should add X.
I didn't
and-
see that.
And zoom there.
I think we should.
or just take
just
out.
take it
Or
out.
take it out.
I
Yeah.
would
I'm
take it
sorry,
out.
the board can decide. I would advise the board not to get into naming social
Let's just
media.
say social media. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to leave MySpace in though.
because that's.
That's the only thing.
That's, yep, yep. Definitely leave that one in there.
Thank you.
That's it for that one.
Appreciate your attention to detail.
Okay,
Same.
moving on, it is 7540.02, web content, apps, and services.
Okay, under A, last sentence in the second paragraph, it talks about contents of apps and services, board's mission statement, staff-created web content. Services and apps are subject to prior review and approval of the district administrator. Should that be district administrator or designee?
Could be. That's appropriate, isn't it?
That is definitely appropriate.
You're not,
I support being able to designate that, because that's what currently is done. Sorry, that was a little enthusiastic.
Anything else on that one?
Thank you for that.
Let's see, at the bottom of page 1 of 5, under educate, that's number 1. The first, that sentence, content should be suitable for and usable by students and teachers, it says. Would it read better if it said students and educators?
We can.
Because that would include TAs and SEAs.
Yeah, I mean, we use the term teachers. I wonder how we define teachers in the definitions at the beginning of our policy. Not in this individual, but,
Right.
you know, at the beginning of all of our policies.
Right.
But I can check on that, and
Okay.
if it's defined, we'll leave it, because we often use teachers as a broad term, but I appreciate your wanting to make
But
it
as
more
a reader of
inclusive.
this, I didn't interpret that as
Okay.
everybody, but sometimes I will.
Yep, I got it.
Okay, anything else?
Page 2 of 5. The fourth paragraph from the bottom, it says district administrator.
Yep.
Should we add or designee? Or is this something that you would be doing, Erin?
It's administrative procedure, so it feels like it's me.
If not you, who?
Well, it could be, somebody in the technology department.
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
I think that's fine to leave
Okay,
as me. I don't know that I want other people,
That's fine. Yep,
changing the
that's fine.
standards of our website.
Anything else there?
that's it.
8510, wellness policy. Anybody got anything there?
It's been a while.
Yes.
Just so the community knows too, these are either district initiated policies or policies that have sort of been sitting in draft form and bantered about for a while.
Under, under wellness, B, we talk about improve the health and well-being of our children. But up on A, we talk about improving students' health. Should it be consistent? Because we have student in A, children in B, child in C.
What's most appropriate? Student?
Yeah, I would think student.
Just so that there's more consistency there.
Student, oh, sorry, I'm not helping the public here. Student in B from children. Okay. Do you want me to change child nutrition to student nutrition in C? Or not?
I was just thinking for consistency purposes.
That one too? Yeah, I think it's fine. It doesn't
not?
change the meaning of
No,
the-
it doesn't.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, can I interject on this?
I think you are.
Go ahead. Please do.
I think it'd be okay if we use the term instead of student, children, because we do, this policy does extend, a little bit more globally to just children, not just student. And we consider 4K as students, even though we do try to do outreach to, families that are before they enter school and even after. So I think maybe children overall in this policy versus just the word student.
I think that's a good point.
Excellent.
As long as there's consistency.
It just needs to be consistent.
Thanks, Jeff.
And then under 2.8, page 2.8 and 3.8, are we removing all those items except the ones that are Xed?
Yes. Yeah, X are the ones that we picked.
Okay.
X are the ones that we selected
Okay.
in all of those. They're just options.
I have a question about the, on page 3.8, the nutrition promotion. What is the Smarter Lunchroom self-assessment scorecard? Is that, who develops that, or how do we use that?
Do you have information on that, Jeff?
Yes. So that is an item that we have to do when we are assessing for the National School Lunch Program. And so this is something we already do.
Yep.
I just hadn't heard about what that specific thing was, so, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then page 5 of 8, under physical activity, number 4, I see we aren't, let's see, yes. All students in grades K through, okay, we aren't going to use that one, shall provide daily recess, at least so many minutes. Again, I'll reiterate the need for play, either informal or structured play for young kids. And I just don't want our overcrowded curriculum to crowd them out of recess or playtime. And play can actually occur in the classroom also. you know, learning to play and play learning and all that, but it's important that we not lose focus on that. We talk about mental health of kids. Well, a lot of kids are under stress right now.
I think it's universally agreed upon that physical activity is at least one of the things that, you know, can combat that anxiety and depression.
And I concur with that. My question is, do we put it in practice? You know, because of the timelines for everything. Again, it's just a caution that I put out there. Let's see. I think that's it for me.
Okay. 7250, commemoration of school facilities. Nothing there?
Nope.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 unanimously, and I would look for a motion for adjournment. Thank you very much. Okay,
Is your mic on? Yeah.
who's the second?
I'll second.
Megan? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and we are adjourned at 9:06.
Great.
Well done, all. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Come back next time.